She thought she'd marry a disabled millionaire. But the wedding vows exposed a lie of love. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain was falling hard over the city, turning the streets into shimmering mirrors of yellow light. Inside a quiet rooftop restaurant, the hum of jazz filled the air. Behind a table set for two sat Lucas Grant, the once brilliant tech CEO whose name had vanished from headlines after the accident. The man who used to walk into boardrooms now moved only with the help of a wheelchair. His suit was pressed, his posture straight, but there was something about his stillness that made people hesitate to meet his eyes. At exactly 7 o'clock, the elevator doors opened. Maya Thompson, a physical therapist in her late 20s, stepped out. Her coat was soaked through, her shoes squeaked against the marble floor, and her heart pounded so loud she could barely breathe. She had no idea why the richest patient she had ever treated had asked to see her here, alone, outside of the hospital. "Mr. Grant," she greeted softly, clutching her worn leather bag. "I hope I am not late." He looked up. His eyes were sharp, calculating, yet oddly calm. "You are right on time. Please, sit." Maya hesitated before pulling out the chair opposite him. The restaurant was nearly empty, only the sound of rain and silverware between them. Lucas studied her in silence for a long moment, his fingers tapping the armrest of his chair. Then, without preamble, he said it. "Marry me." Maya blinked, certain she had misheard. "I am sorry." "What?" He repeated it, his tone flat, businesslike. "I need a wife, Miss Thompson. Temporarily. Call it a contract." The words hung in the air like thunder that refused to fade. She stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or run. "This is not funny." "I am not joking," he said. "My late father's will requires that I be legally married by the end of this quarter to retain control of the company. The board already smells blood. I need someone I can trust not to use this for attention or money. Someone discreet." Maya's mouth went dry. "You barely know me." "That is exactly why it could work," Lucas said quietly. "You have no reason to lie to me, and I have already checked your background. Clean record. You send half your salary to your brother's medical bills. You have been working 3 jobs since your mother's surgery. You do not care about fame. You care about surviving." Her breath caught. "So, this is what this is about? You think I can be bought?" He did not flinch. "I think you need help, and I can offer it. In exchange, you help me. 3 months of marriage. Appear at a few public events. Follow the conditions I set. You will receive enough to cover your debts and your brother's treatment twice over." Maya rose halfway from her seat, her pulse hammering. "This is insane. You want me to pretend to be your wife?" "I want you to sign a contract," he said simply. "You will not have to love me, Miss Thompson. You will not even have to like me." The waiter approached nervously, but Lucas lifted a hand, dismissing him. His eyes never left hers. "You can walk away right now," he said softly. "But before you do, ask yourself how many more times can you watch your brother's condition worsen before something breaks?" Rain drummed harder against the glass. Maya's throat burned. The logic of it was cruel but undeniable. For years, she had been the one holding everyone else together. Now, here was a lifeline tied to a man who spoke like marriage was a transaction, not a promise. "What would be the rules?" she finally asked. Lucas exhaled, as if he had known she would say yes. From his briefcase, he pulled a folder, the kind used for business mergers. Inside was a printed agreement with her name already typed on the first line. 5 conditions, he said. No romantic involvement, no personal questions, attend 3 events by my side, maintain confidentiality, and above all, do not ask about the accident. Maya's eyes lifted to his face. "Why that one?" For the first time, his composure cracked. "Because some lies," he murmured, "are not ready to be told." The candle between them flickered, casting his expression in half shadow, half light. Against her better judgment, she reached for the pen lying beside the folder. Her hand trembled as she signed her name. Lucas extended his right hand across the table. "Congratulations, Mrs. Grant," he said quietly. Outside, thunder rolled across the skyline, echoing like a warning neither of them yet understood. The next morning, Maya woke up in her tiny apartment to the sound of her phone buzzing nonstop. She stared at the screen, 5 missed calls from the hospital, 2 from her landlord. Rent was due. Her brother's doctor had sent another reminder for the unpaid balance. Reality came crashing back like a wave. On the small kitchen table lay the envelope Lucas had given her the night before. Inside was a cashier's check with more zeros than she had ever seen in her life. Her throat tightened. It was real. Everything he said real. And she had said, yes? The city outside was wrapped in a gray winter haze when a black car stopped in front of her building. A uniformed driver stepped out and held open the door. Miss Thompson, he said politely, Mr. Grant is expecting you. Maya's heart raced as she climbed into the car. The silence inside was almost suffocating. By the time the vehicle rolled through the tall iron gates of the Grant estate, her palms were damp with sweat. The mansion rose ahead like something out of a magazine, white stone walls, glass corridors, a garden sculpted with mathematical precision. She had never been anywhere like it. Inside, everything gleamed. Marble floors, chandeliers that scattered light like falling stars. A housekeeper appeared instantly, guiding her up the grand staircase. Mr. Grant is in the study, she said. When Maya entered, Lucas was at his desk, reading over a set of documents. The morning light from the tall windows hit the side of his face, softening his usual sharpness. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. You came, he said simply. I said I would. He nodded, motioning to a leather chair across from him. We need to finalize the terms before the lawyers arrive. Maya sat carefully, hands clasped together. You really have lawyers involved? This is a legal marriage, he replied. It has to look real. The ceremony will be small but public. We will live together until the contract ends. You will have your own room, of course. Her eyes darted to the framed photographs behind him, images of Lucas before the accident, standing on a mountain trail, shaking hands with governors, smiling, alive. The man in the wheelchair looked like a ghost of that version of himself. He followed her gaze. Those are reminders, he said quietly, of what was lost. Maya hesitated. Was it really an accident? Is they Glest and Tess? Lucas's jaw tightened. Do not ask about that. She lowered her eyes. Right. Condition number 5. A knock interrupted them. A tall woman entered, carrying a folder of color swatches and fabric samples. This is Clara, our wedding coordinator, Lucas said. She will make sure you look the part. Maya stood awkwardly as Clara circled her, measuring with quick, precise movements. You have good posture, the woman said, not looking up. We can work with that. Lucas watched silently. When Clara left, he wheeled closer, stopping just a few feet away. I know this is overwhelming, he said, voice low, but it will not last long. After 3 months, you can walk away free. Debts paid. Brother safe. Maya looked at him, trying to read something human behind the steel. And you? What happens to you after this? He smiled without warmth. I get to keep my company. That is all that matters. But as she followed the housekeeper to her new room, the words echoed hollowly in her mind. The space she was shown was larger than her entire apartment. White sheets, a balcony overlooking the garden, a wardrobe already filled with clothes that were not hers. It should have felt like luxury, but instead it felt like a cage lined with silk. Standing by the window, she watched Lucas in the courtyard below, speaking with his assistant. He looked calm, untouchable. Yet there was something in the way his shoulders tensed when he thought no one was watching. She whispered to herself, what did I just agree to? Downstairs, Lucas glanced up toward the window, as if he could feel her gaze. For a moment their eyes met through the glass, 2 strangers bound by ink in desperation. Then he turned away, the wheels of his chair gliding soundlessly across the marble floor. The contract had been signed. The game had begun. The next few days passed in a blur of instructions, fittings, and signatures. The wedding planner returned daily, bringing gowns, shoes, and endless checklists. Makeup artists measured her skin tone. Photographers rehearsed lighting angles for the ceremony. Maya moved through it all like someone trapped in a dream she could not wake from. Every step felt rehearsed, timed, perfect, and completely unreal. Lucas remained detached, treating the entire process like another corporate transaction. He approved menus, confirmed guest lists, and spoke to his assistant about shareholder optics as if their upcoming marriage were merely a marketing strategy. When Maya entered the room, he would look up briefly, nod politely, and return to his files. One evening, while rehearsing her walk down the aisle inside the grand foyer, she stumbled on the edge of her dress. The event planner gasped, but Lucas only chuckled from his chair near the fireplace. It was the first time she had heard him laugh. Soft and quiet, almost human. "Try again," he said. "You will have the whole boardroom watching. Better to trip here than at the altar." Maya straightened her posture, cheeks warm. "You make it sound like a presentation, not a wedding." "That is all it is," he replied, though his eyes softened for a moment before he turned away. That night, she could not sleep. The mansion was too silent, the kind of silence that made her heart pound louder. She wandered into the hallway, following the faint glow from the study downstairs. Lucas was there, still awake, reading documents under a pool of light. A half-empty glass of bourbon rested near his hand. "You should rest," she said quietly. He did not look up. "I could say the same to you." Maya hesitated near the doorway. "Do you ever wonder if you could just start over without all of this?" He closed the file and looked at her for a long moment. "Starting over is a luxury," he said. "One I lost the night my car went off that bridge." The words hung heavy between them. He took a slow sip from the glass. "I used to believe accidents were random. Now I know better. Some people call them fate. Others call them design." Maya frowned. "You think someone caused it?" His expression hardened again. "Condition number 5, remember?" She nodded, embarrassed. "I am sorry. It is just—" "Curiosity is dangerous in this house," he interrupted, his tone gentle but final. "Get some sleep, Mrs. Grant-to-be." The next morning the estate buzzed with preparations. White tents covered the courtyard, florists filled vases with pale lilies, and catering trucks rolled through the gates. Reporters were already gathering near the entrance. The ceremony would be private, but not secret. Inside, Maya stood before a mirror in the bridal suite. The silk gown shimmered like moonlight, her hair pinned with delicate silver combs. She barely recognized the woman staring back. When the doors opened, the officiant waited under the arch of flowers. Lucas was there, suited in dark navy, his wheelchair gleaming under the afternoon light. He looked calm, almost cold, until his eyes met hers. For a heartbeat, everything else faded: the cameras, the guests, the contracts. Just the two of them, bound by a lie neither fully understood. The officiant's voice was firm and ceremonial. "Do you, Lucas Grant, take this woman?" "I do," he said quickly, his gaze steady on her face. "And do you, Maya Thompson?" She hesitated, her throat tight. Then she forced the words out. "I do." A ripple of applause moved through the courtyard. The officiant smiled. "You may exchange your vows." Lucas's voice lowered to a near whisper. "I promise to protect you even when it is not required by contract." The crowd laughed politely, thinking it was a joke, but his eyes did not waver. Maya swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Then, from somewhere in the audience, a voice called out sharp and loud, "Protect her? You cannot even stand up." The laughter died. All heads turned toward the sound. A woman in a red dress, elegant and furious, stepped forward. "Tell them, Lucas," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "Tell them the truth, that you are not crippled at all." The courtyard froze. Reporters gasped. Cameras flashed. Lucas's hand tightened around the armrest of his chair. For the first time since she had met him, Maya saw fear flicker behind his calm facade. And then, without a word, he slowly pushed himself to his feet. Gasps rippled through the courtyard as Lucas straightened his back, standing tall under the canopy of white lilies. The guests murmured, phones lifted, flashes igniting like lightning. The woman in red folded her arms, smirking. "See? The poor, helpless Mr. Grant has been lying to everyone. What a perfect love story for the tabloids." Maya's heart pounded. She turned toward Lucas, disbelief flooding her face. "You can walk?" she whispered. Lucas's voice was calm, but his eyes burned. "Yes." Why pretend?" He did not answer. Instead, he looked at the officiant and said evenly, "Continue." But the ceremony had already unraveled. The crowd buzzed with confusion, reporters snapping photos like vultures. The woman in red stepped closer. "You are a fraud, Lucas, and you dragged this girl into your lie. Tell them who you really are, or I will." Maya felt the world tilt beneath her. Every word, every rule he had made suddenly made sense. The accident, the secrecy, the conditions she was forbidden to question. But before she could speak, security appeared, guiding the woman away as she shouted something about shareholders and revenge. Lucas turned back to Maya. His expression was unreadable. "We are leaving." He took her hand and led her away from the stunned guests. Cameras followed them until the doors closed behind, sealing them in the silence of the marble hallway. Only then did Maya pull her hand free. "Tell me the truth," she demanded, her voice shaking. "Who was she?" Lucas looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Her name is Evelyn. She used to be my fiancée, until she tried to destroy me." Maya stared. "Destroy you how?" He exhaled slowly. "She is the one who caused the accident. I survived, but I needed everyone, including her, to believe I was powerless. It was the only way to expose what she did." The words sank in like stones in deep water. "So all of this," she gestured around them, her wedding dress shimmering under the chandelier, "was just part of your plan?" "It was supposed to be," he admitted. "You were never meant to be caught in it." Her throat tightened. "Then why choose me?" "Because you were the only person I trusted not to betray me." His voice softened. "And because you looked at me like a man, not a monster." Maya turned away, her chest aching. "You lied to me." "I lied to everyone," he said quietly. "But I never meant to hurt you." "Then what was I supposed to be, Lucas? A distraction? A shield?" He did not respond. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Finally, she said, "You wanted a contract marriage. Congratulations, you got what you paid for." And she walked past him, the hem of her gown sweeping across the marble like a whisper. That night, the headlines exploded. "Billionaire walks at his own wedding." "Fake marriage scandal at Grant Estate." The world devoured the story, spinning rumors faster than the truth could catch up. Maya locked herself in the guest room, her phone buzzing endlessly with messages from reporters, friends, and strangers. Outside her window, the city glittered like 1,000 eyes watching her fall apart. Downstairs, Lucas sat alone in the dark study, staring at the flickering fire. His phone buzzed too, but he ignored it. Instead, he held the silver ring still on his finger and whispered, "I never wanted it to end like this." For the first time, the powerful Lucas Grant looked like a man completely defeated. In her room, Maya pressed her hand over her chest, her vows echoing in her mind, "I do." She had said those words as part of a contract, but somehow they had become real. She whispered into the empty room, "You wanted the truth, Lucas. Now you have it." They're one. Outside, thunder rolled again, echoing the night they first met. And for both of them, the line between love and deception had never felt so thin. 3 days passed since the disastrous wedding, but the world refused to forget. Every channel replayed the same footage: Lucas Grant rising from his wheelchair, the bride frozen beside him, the woman in red shouting accusations. The internet had turned their private nightmare into a public spectacle. Inside the mansion, reporters camped outside the gates, flashing cameras at every passing car. Maya had not left her room since that day. The once pristine bridal gown hung on the door, a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. Her phone overflowed with requests for interviews, offers for book deals, and cruel messages from strangers calling her a gold digger. On the third morning, a knock sounded at her door. It was Mrs. Collins, the elderly housekeeper who had served the Grant family for decades. "Mr. Grant asked if you would come down for breakfast," she said gently. Maya hesitated. "Is he still pretending for the press?" Mrs. Collins shook her head. "No, dear. He stopped pretending the moment you walked away." When Maya entered the dining hall, Lucas was seated at the far end of the long oak table. No wheelchair this time. He was standing by the window, staring out at the rain. His face looked different, tired, older, stripped of the polished armor he always wore. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "You came." "I am not here for you," she said flatly. "I am here to tell you that I am leaving." He nodded slowly, as if he had expected it. "You deserve to, but before you go, there is something you should see." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs, medical reports, and a police statement. One image showed the wreck of a black car twisted around a guardrail. Another showed the woman in red, Evelyn, signing an insurance form. "She sabotaged my brakes," he said quietly. "The police had no proof until now. That is why I kept the truth hidden. I needed her to expose herself publicly. The board meeting next week will remove her and every partner tied to her scheme. That is all I wanted." Maya looked up, her voice trembling. "And me? What was I in all of this? He met her gaze. You were the only person who made the lie bearable. Her throat tightened. You could have told me the truth. If I had, you would have been in danger, he said. Evelyn's people were watching. I could not risk you. The sincerity in his tone disarmed her. Still, anger burned beneath her chest. You risked me anyway. You let me stand beside you while the world humiliated me. I know, he said softly, and I will fix it. Isn't 40 happen? She pushed the folder back toward him. You cannot fix what you broke. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Maya, you once asked if I ever thought about starting over. I am asking you now, help me try. She paused but did not turn around. You do not need me for that. He exhaled shakily. Maybe not, but I want you for it. Maya walked out of the room without answering. Her chest felt heavy, caught between fury and something that hurt worse understanding. That evening, Lucas appeared before the press alone. Cameras flashed as he stood at the podium, the rain still falling around him. The woman you saw at my wedding was not my wife, he said clearly. She was my accomplice in uncovering a crime. She should not be blamed for my choices. I lied to everyone, but she lied to no one. Her only mistake was trusting me. Across the city, Maya watched the broadcast from her small apartment, tears burning behind her eyes. For the first time, he had told the truth, not as a CEO, not as a strategist, but as a man. When the reporter asked if he regretted anything, Lucas looked directly at the cameras and said, Yes, I regret letting the right person walk away. The feed cut to static, but the silence that followed said more than words ever could. 2 weeks passed before Maya heard from him again. The headlines had shifted to newer scandals, and the noise surrounding the fake marriage had finally begun to fade. She had returned to her job at the rehabilitation clinic, trying to blend back into ordinary life. But every night, when the last patient left and the hallways grew quiet, her thoughts drifted back to Lucas, the man who had lied to her, protected her, and somehow still lingered in her heart. One afternoon, as she was organizing patient files, her supervisor called out from the reception desk. Maya, there is someone here to see you. She walked out expecting a delivery or a patient's relative. Instead, Lucas stood there, dressed simply in a dark coat and holding a bouquet of white lilies. The room went silent. Even the nurses behind the counter stopped typing. Maya's stomach tightened. You should not be here, she said quietly. I know, he replied, his voice steady but soft. But I needed to see you. Just once more. She crossed her arms, trying to keep her composure. I saw your press conference. You looked sincere. I was, he said. And everything I said was true. Evelyn was arrested last week. The investigation proved she sabotaged my car. The board reinstated me, but I stepped down. I do not want that life anymore. Maya blinked. You quit? The company was your world. Was this fine? He nodded slowly. It was my father's world. I only inherited it. But for the first time, I want something that is mine. She looked at the flowers in his hand. What do you want, Lucas? He took a deep breath. A chance to make things right. I bought an old community center downtown. I am turning it into a foundation for rehabilitation, free therapy for accident victims, veterans, and anyone who cannot afford it. I want you to run it with me. Maya hesitated. You think you can erase everything with a job offer? No, he said quickly. This is not payment. It is purpose. I learned that you do not build redemption with money. You build it with action. And I cannot do it without someone who believes in that. Her eyes softened despite herself. Why me? Because you taught me to stand again, he said. Not just on my feet, but as a man. The room was silent for a moment. She felt tears threaten but held them back. You hurt me, Lucas. You turned my life into a headline. I know, he said. That is something I will carry for the rest of my life. But if you ever decide to forgive me, you will not have to find me in a boardroom. You will find me downtown, painting walls and laying bricks. He set the bouquet on the counter and turned to leave. But before he reached the door, Maya spoke. Wait, he stopped, his back to her. She walked closer, her voice barely above a whisper. If I came to that center, if I said yes, it would not be because I forgive you. It would be because I believe in what it could become. He turned slowly, and for the first time, his smile was real. That is all I could ask for. The next morning, Maya stood in front of the old building Lucas had bought. The walls were cracked, the roof sagging, but sunlight poured through the broken windows. Lucas was already there, sleeves rolled up, covered in dust. She joined him without a word, taking the paint roller from his hand. He looked at her, and for the first time since the wedding, the silence between them felt peaceful. As they painted side by side, a soft wind moved through the open doors, carrying away the scent of fresh paint and something even stronger, the feeling that this, finally, was real. Months passed, and the once abandoned community center slowly transformed into a place filled with light and laughter. The walls that had been cracked and gray were now painted in soft blues and whites. Every morning, volunteers arrived early, carrying boxes of medical supplies and therapy tools. And at the heart of it all were Lucas and Maya working side by side, building something real out of everything that had once been false. Maya had not realized how much she had missed the sound of his voice until she heard it echo through the hallways again. But this time, he did not speak like a CEO giving orders. He listened. He learned. He smiled. The man who once built empires from glass towers now built hope from concrete and compassion. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low through the wide windows, Maya found Lucas in the main hall, standing beside a young boy learning to walk again. The child took a few shaky steps, then stumbled. Lucas knelt quickly to catch him, steadying him with careful hands. "Try again," he said gently. "Falling is part of learning." The boy nodded, trying once more. When he made it to the end of the mat, the small group of volunteers clapped. Lucas looked up and saw Maya watching from the doorway. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the noise around them disappeared. Later, when the day ended and the building emptied, Maya stayed behind to finish paperwork. She heard soft footsteps and looked up to see Lucas standing in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I figured you might need this," he said. She smiled faintly. "Still learning how to read people, I see." "Just you," he replied, setting the cup down beside her. "You are the only person who never fits into my calculations." Maya looked at him for a long moment. "You are different now," she said quietly. "Not the man I met that night in the restaurant." "I hope not," he said. "That man was afraid of being seen. This one is just trying to be honest." She nodded, her heart tightening in a way she did not expect. "It suits you." They worked in silence for a while, the sound of pen scratches and distant city traffic filling the air. Finally, Lucas spoke again. "There is a board meeting next week," he said. "The foundation will officially open. I want you to be the one to speak." Maya blinked. "Me? Why?" "Because this place exists because of you," he said simply. "You believed in something before I did. The public should hear that." She hesitated. "I do not like standing in front of cameras." "Neither do I," he admitted with a small smile. "But this time, we are not acting. That makes it easier." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "You make it sound simple." "It is," he said, "when the truth is on your side." The evening light caught his face, softening the scars she had once been too afraid to ask about. For a moment, she wondered if forgiveness had already begun, without her realizing it. When he left the room, she watched him disappear down the hall, her heart beating faster than it should. On the table lay a folder labeled Opening Ceremony, Schedule. Inside, she saw something that made her stop. The last page read, Proposed Name, the Grant and Maya Foundation. Her breath caught. She traced the letters with her fingertips, feeling the warmth of something deeper than gratitude. Outside, the wind carried the scent of spring rain through the open window. She looked out into the night and whispered, "Maybe second chances are not just for love. Maybe they are for life too." And for the first time, she believed it. The day of the foundation's grand opening arrived beneath a sky painted in gold and silver clouds. The courtyard outside the new rehabilitation center overflowed with guests, reporters, and families whose lives had already been touched by the place. A large banner hung above the entrance. The Grant and Maya Foundation, for every step toward healing. Maya stood behind the stage curtain, her hands shaking slightly as she held her speech. She had spoken in front of patients and colleagues before, but this felt different. This was public. This was personal. Through the thin fabric, she could see Lucas greeting guests, his dark suit immaculate, his movements strong and sure. There was no trace of the man who had once hidden behind a wheelchair. Mrs. Collins approached and touched Maya's arm gently. "He looks nervous too," she whispered. "Do not let him fool you." Maya smiled faintly. He is good at pretending, and great a will to the playing of the brong, in mabration that on of the cardy. Not any more, dear, the old woman said with a wink. The music faded, and the host's voice echoed through the speakers. Please welcome the co-founder of the Grant and Maya Foundation, Miss Maya Thompson. Applause erupted as she stepped onto the stage. The sunlight caught her hair, and for a moment she had to blink back tears. She took a breath and began. When we first started, she said, her voice steady, this building was nothing more than crumbling walls and dust. It was hard to imagine that one day it would be filled with hope. But someone once told me that redemption is built with action, not words. And that is exactly what we tried to do here. Her eyes found Lucas in the crowd. He was watching her, his expression unreadable but full of pride. This foundation is not just about therapy or recovery, Maya continued. It is about dignity, the belief that no one is beyond repair. Every person deserves a second chance to stand, to try again, and to be seen for who they truly are. The audience clapped warmly, and Maya felt a wave of peace wash over her. She looked at Lucas again. He mouthed the words, "Thank you." After the ceremony, guests mingled in the courtyard. Reporters asked for interviews, but Lucas guided her away quietly toward the back garden, where the noise faded into birdsong. "You were incredible," he said. "I was terrified," she admitted with a laugh. "I almost dropped the microphone," he smiled. "No one noticed. You looked confident." She crossed her arms. "You planned this, did you not? Making me speak?" "I did," he said simply, "because I wanted you to see yourself the way I see you." Her breath caught. "And how is that?" He stepped closer. "Strong, honest, the heart of everything good that came out of my chaos." The silence stretched, heavy and fragile. Maya felt her pulse quicken. "Lucas!" Before she could continue, a voice called out from the main gate. A group of reporters had found them, shouting questions about their relationship, their history, the infamous wedding. Lucas's expression darkened. He took her hand instinctively, shielding her as cameras flashed. "Back inside," he said quietly. They hurried through the glass doors, security pushing the crowd away. Inside the main hall, the noise dimmed, leaving only the echo of their breathing. Maya pulled her hand back. "It will never stop, will it?" He looked at her, his voice low but firm. "Maybe not. But this time, I am not hiding. Let them talk. We will answer with what we build." Maya met his gaze, searching for the truth. For the first time, there was no mask, no distance, only sincerity. "I do not know what this is between us," she said softly, "but it feels real." Lucas's eyes softened. "That is because it is." A said masters as Armin's friend. In that quiet hall, surrounded by the echoes of laughter and hope, something shifted. The fake vows that had once bound them no longer felt like chains. They felt like the beginning of something that had finally found its truth. A year later, the city had changed, and so had they. The Grant and Maya Foundation had grown into a network of rehabilitation centers across 3 states, serving hundreds of patients every week. The story that had once made them a scandal was now something else entirely, a legend of redemption, whispered in news articles and evening talk shows as proof that even the most broken stories could find their way to light again. Maya arrived early that morning, unlocking the doors to the center before sunrise. The air smelled faintly of paint and coffee, and sunlight crept across the new mural on the wall, a pair of open hands releasing a white dove into the sky. Lucas had painted it himself during one of the late nights they worked together. Underneath, in simple letters, were the words, "For every fall, there is a rise." She smiled to herself, running a hand over the fresh paint. It still amazed her how far they had come. Behind her, she heard familiar footsteps. "You still get here before everyone," Lucas said, holding 2 cups of coffee. "No," she replied. "You just finally learned what to hope for." They stood quietly for a moment, watching the morning light spill through the glass. Then, Lucas turned toward her, something different in his expression, calm, certain, and sincere. "There is one more thing I want to do today," he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya froze, her heart thudding against her ribs. "Lucas," she whispered. He opened it slowly. Inside was a simple ring, nothing like the lavish diamond he had once offered in that cold restaurant so long ago. This one was gold, engraved with the words no contracts, only choice. He took a step closer. The first time I asked you to marry me, it was a lie wrapped in desperation. This time, it is the truth wrapped in hope. Maya Thompson, will you marry me not for a contract, not for a cause, but for love? Tears blurred her vision. For a long moment, she could not speak. The echoes of the past, the fake vows, the headlines, the heartbreak all faded until only this moment remained. Finally, she smiled through her tears. Yes, she said softly, but only if you promise no more fine print. He laughed, slipping the ring onto her finger. Deal. Outside, the volunteers began to applaud as if the universe itself had been listening. The sound filled the hall like music. Later that evening, as the celebration lights glowed across the courtyard, Maya stood beside Lucas under the banner that bore both their names. Guests raised their glasses, and someone called out, "To the couple who turned a lie into love." Lucas took her hand and whispered, "This time, forever starts for real." The crowd cheered, and the camera flash lit the moment into memory. In the final shot, the mural shone behind them, the white dove soaring upward, the words beneath glowing in the sunset. For every fall, there is a rise. And with that, their story, once built on deception, ended exactly where true love always begins, in honesty, forgiveness, and the quiet courage to try again.